The night always holds secrets unseen by the eye. Behind the darkness, there are whispers that not everyone can hear, footsteps that shouldn't exist, and shadows that move on their own in the corner of the room. This story isn't just a tale to scare you, it's something that may have happened, or could be happening right now, closer than you think. Listen carefully, and make sure you're not alone while hearing it. Ethan Walker never imagined that buying an old manor in the English countryside would change his life forever. He was just a horror writer experiencing creative burnout. After years of writing terrifying fiction based on myths and legends, he wanted to feel the horror himself, something real, something tangible. Blackwood Manor appeared on the market at a shockingly low price. A grand Victorian-style mansion, standing alone in the middle of vast fields, surrounded by towering oak trees that cast eerie shadows, adding to the quiet, mysterious atmosphere. A house of this size should have been worth hundreds of thousands of pounds, yet it was selling for barely a third of that. Ethan was intrigued. He did some digging and found out that the house had a long, unsettling history. Previous owners reported strange occurrences, unexplained noises, shifting shadows, and disturbing incidents that defied logic. But instead of scaring him away, this only fueled his curiosity. He signed the papers with a mix of excitement and disbelief. As the real estate agent handed him the keys, the elderly man hesitated before saying, "Blackwood Manor never truly belongs to anyone." Ethan chuckled, brushing it off as an attempt to make the house seem more haunted than it actually was. But deep down, a tiny, unshakable feeling told him something was wrong with this place. The day after buying the house, Ethan decided to visit the nearby village. It was a small, old-fashioned place with a traditional pub, a modest grocery store, and a handful of stone-built homes. He stepped into a tiny cafe run by an elderly woman named Mrs. Holloway. The moment Ethan mentioned he had bought Blackwood Manor, the cafe's atmosphere shifted. Conversations halted, people exchanged uneasy glances, and Mrs. Holloway's once warm expression turned serious. "You bought that house?" she asked in a hushed tone. Ethan nodded. "Yeah. I'm a writer. I needed a quiet place with inspiration." An old man sitting in the corner scoffed. "Inspiration? What you'll get there isn't inspiration, son. It's nightmares." Ethan laughed lightly, assuming it was just superstition. "I just wanted a place with history. I like a challenge." Mrs. Holloway sighed, shaking her head. "Many before you said the same, dear. But they never stayed long. Some left in the middle of the night, and some, well, they simply vanished." A chill ran down Ethan's spine. He dismissed their words as exaggerated village folklore, but something about the way they spoke like they knew something he didn't unnerved him. His first day at Blackwood Manor went smoothly. He brought his belongings in a rented van and started arranging the furniture. The house was massive, with long hallways, tall dusty windows, and antique furniture left behind by the previous owners. As he walked through the house, his footsteps echoed against the old wooden floors. But something felt off. A persistent feeling crept over him, the unsettling sensation of being watched. From the moment he stepped inside, he couldn't shake the eerie notion that he wasn't alone. Sometimes, it felt like someone was standing just behind him. But whenever he turned around, there was nothing. What truly disturbed him, though, was the large mirror in the main hallway. Every time he passed it, he swore his reflection moved just a fraction too slowly. He tried to ignore it, telling himself it was just his mind playing tricks on him. But as night fell, something far more sinister made itself known. His first night at Blackwood Manor was filled with eerie silence. There were no sounds of passing cars, no voices of neighbors, just the whisper of the wind sneaking through the old walls. While working on his book in his study on the second floor, he suddenly heard a faint noise from the hallway. A slow, creaking sound. Ethan turned and saw that one of the guest room doors was slightly ajar. He was sure he had closed all the doors earlier. With a cautious frown, he got up and walked toward it. When he shut the door, he heard a soft click, confirming it was closed. But as he turned back toward his study, the sound came again. The door had opened by itself. His pulse quickened. He took a deep breath and tried to be rational. Maybe there's a draft, he muttered, though he knew all the windows were shut. This time, he pushed the door firmly shut and dragged a chair in front of it. He returned to his desk, determined to ignore the growing unease creeping up his spine. At midnight, Ethan was jolted awake by a sound. At first, he thought it was the house settling, but then he listened closer. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. They started at the far end of the hallway and moved steadily toward his room. Tap, tap, tap. Ethan held his breath. He knew he was alone. There was no one else in the house. Yet the footsteps grew louder, stopping just outside his bedroom door. He grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight. Under the door's gap, he could see a shadow. Someone or something was standing right there, motionless. His hands trembled as he reached for the doorknob, ready to pull it open. But before he could, another sound made his blood run cold. Breathing. A slow, shallow breath. Right on the other side of the door. Ethan froze. Then, the door handle trembled slightly, as if someone was trying to turn it. And then, a whisper, soft, chilling, and unmistakably real. "You shouldn't be here." The night was long. Ethan barely slept after hearing the whisper outside his door. He kept his phone's flashlight on, watching the shadow beneath the door, waiting for it to move. But after what felt like an eternity, the footsteps never returned. At some point, exhaustion took over. His eyes grew heavy, and he drifted into an uneasy sleep. When he woke up the next morning, his body was stiff, his mind groggy. Sunlight streamed through the dusty window, illuminating the wooden floorboards. Everything seemed normal except for one thing. The door. It was open. Just slightly. His stomach dropped. He knew he had locked it before going to sleep. He remembered hearing the whisper. He felt the presence on the other side. Yet, there it was. A small gap, just wide enough for someone or something to have peeked in while he was sleeping. A cold shiver ran down his spine. Trying to remain calm, he got out of bed and checked the door handle. It was unlocked. He swallowed hard. Maybe he had been too tired to remember locking it. Maybe the old house had faulty locks. He wanted to believe that. But something inside him whispered otherwise. Ethan spent the morning trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. He made himself a cup of coffee in the kitchen, attempting to distract himself by going over ideas for his book. But then, something else happened. It started with the salt shaker. As he reached for his coffee mug, the small glass container slid across the table by itself. Ethan froze. His breath hitched. He stared at it, waiting for another movement. But nothing happened. His first instinct was to dismiss it. Maybe the table was uneven. Maybe his own movements had caused it to shift. But before he could convince himself of that, something else caught his attention. A chair, tucked under the dining table, slowly scraped backward. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He could feel the hairs on his arms standing on end. No breeze. No windows open. No one else in the house. Yet, something was here. Ethan pushed back from the table, his breathing shallow. The silence around him felt heavy, suffocating. Then, from the hallway, he heard a soft thud. Something had fallen over. Still trying to rationalize what was happening, Ethan cautiously made his way toward the source of the noise. In the hallway, near the staircase, an old wooden box had toppled over. Papers and miscellaneous items spilled onto the floor, remnants of the previous owners, forgotten and left behind. He knelt down, sifting through them. Most of it was junk: old letters, faded documents, rusted keys. But then, he found something unsettling. An old photograph. A family portrait, judging by the formal clothing and rigid posture. A man, a woman, and two children standing in front of what looked like this very house. But there was something wrong. Their faces were scratched out. Deep, violent gouges, as if someone had deliberately erased them. Ethan's chest tightened. Who would do this? And why? As he turned the photograph over, he noticed faint writing on the back. A date October 17, 1893. And beneath it, a single word, written in smudged ink. Forgive. Disturbed by the photograph, Ethan decided to seek answers. He remembered the unease of the villagers at the cafe, their cryptic warnings. Someone had to know why this house had such a reputation. He drove back to the village and found himself at Mrs. Holloway's cafe once again. When she saw him walk in, she sighed, almost as if she had been expecting him. "You saw something, didn't you?" Ethan hesitated. He didn't want to sound insane. But he nodded. Mrs. Holloway set down the dish she was drying. "I told you that house isn't right." "Who lived there before?" Ethan asked. She glanced toward the door, lowering her voice. "A family. The Blackwoods. They were among the wealthiest people in the region during the late 1800s. Ethan pulled out the photograph. "Is this them?" Her eyes widened. She snatched the photo from his hand and stared at it in horror. "Where did you find this?" "In the house," he said. "But the faces were..." Mrs. Holloway inhaled sharply. "Scratched out." She set the photo down as if it burned her fingers. "That's because no one should remember their faces." Ethan frowned. "Why?" She shook her head. "Because they were never meant to be seen again." Ethan couldn't get Mrs. Holloway's words out of his head. He tried asking for more details, but she refused to say anything else. "If you're smart, you'll leave," was all she told him before he left the cafe. But Ethan wasn't ready to give up yet. That night, exhaustion finally took over, and he fell asleep earlier than usual. But sometime in the middle of the night, he woke up abruptly. Something had disturbed his sleep. A sound. No, not just a sound. A whisper. At first, it was faint, almost indistinguishable from the wind outside. But then, it grew louder. Closer. And then, clear as day, he heard it. His name. Ethan. The voice was right beside his ear. His body locked up. He could feel breath against his skin. The air around him turned ice cold. He forced himself to move, his trembling hand reaching for his phone. As he turned on the flashlight, the whispering stopped. Silence. But as the light illuminated the room, his breath caught in his throat. The chair in the corner, it was facing his bed. And he was sure, absolutely sure, that he had left it facing the other way. Someone or something had been watching him. And it was getting closer. Ethan lay frozen in his bed, his pulse hammering in his ears. The chair facing him was bad enough. But then, the whispers started again. At first, they were soft, like a distant echo drifting through the house. But within seconds, they became murmurs, low, garbled voices overlapping each other, seeping through the walls, swirling around the room like unseen figures were conversing just out of sight. The words were impossible to understand, but the tone was unmistakable. Urgent. Insistent. Angry. Ethan sat up slowly, his body rigid. His phone's flashlight flickered slightly as if reacting to the air growing heavier. And then, a floorboard creaked just outside his bedroom. Someone or something was standing in the hallway. Ethan gritted his teeth, forcing his body to move despite the overwhelming dread settling in his chest. He reached for the bedside lamp and switched it on. The warm light filled the room, momentarily breaking the suffocating darkness. The whispers stopped instantly, as if the presence outside had been startled, like a deer caught in headlights. With his breath shaky, he got up. His feet touched the cold wooden floor, sending a shiver up his spine. Slowly, cautiously, he reached for the door handle and pulled it open. The hallway stretched before him, bathed in dim light from the moon outside. He scanned left, then right. Empty. But that wasn't what made his stomach drop. Every single door in the hallway was wide open. Every single one. Guest rooms, closets, Even the attic door at the far end, doors he hadn't touched since moving in, all stood ajar. His pulse pounded. There was no way they had all opened by themselves. Someone had done this. And they were still here. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. He took a slow step back, his instinct screaming at him to return to his room. Then he heard it. A scratching sound. Faint at first, like nails dragging across wood. It seemed to come from the walls, moving, skittering just beyond the plaster. Then it shifted. The noise rushed past him, racing along the corridor, darting from one side to the other. It was fast. Too fast. Something was inside the walls. Ethan clenched his fists, his breathing uneven. His mind tried to rationalize. Rats? It had to be rats. But no rat could move like that. And no rat could whisper his name. Ethan backed away toward his room, his heart hammering in his chest. He needed to think. He needed to leave. But just as he turned to step inside, something caught his eye. The hallway mirror. He hadn't paid much attention to it before. A large, antique mirror with an ornate gold frame, hanging near the staircase. But now, he had to look. Because something inside it had moved. His own reflection was standing there, but just behind him a figure. Tall, thin, with long, shadowy limbs stretching toward him. Ethan whipped around, but there was nothing there. He snapped his head back toward the mirror and the figure was closer. Too close. So close he could see its mouth begin to open. A cold wave of terror slammed into Ethan's chest. His breath hitched, his feet locked in place. The figure tilted its head, as if studying him. The edges of its face blurred, shifting like smoke. Then, slowly, too slowly, it smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not a human smile. A twisted, unnatural grin that stretched too wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. And then, it vanished. Not in a dramatic flicker, not in a slow fade. 1 second it was there and the next, it simply wasn't. Ethan stumbled back, nearly falling into his room. His stomach churned with dread. That thing had been watching him. Studying him. And now it knew he had seen it. Ethan slammed his bedroom door shut, his breath ragged. He locked it twice and pressed his back against the wood, trying to steady his trembling hands. His mind raced. What the hell was that? He wanted to believe it was some kind of hallucination. A trick of the light. Stress. But deep down, he knew better. This house was not empty. Just as his heartbeat began to slow, another sound made his stomach twist. Knock. 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 Ethan froze. It came from inside his wardrobe. His mouth went dry. He turned his head slowly, eyes locked onto the tall wooden wardrobe in the corner of his room. Knock. 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 The knocking was rhythmic. Steady. Deliberate. As if something inside was trying to get out. Ethan's legs refused to move. His mind screamed for him to run, but his body wouldn't listen. And then, the wardrobe door creaked open. Just a little. Just enough to reveal the pitch-black void inside. No clothes. No shelves. Just darkness. Ethan's breath hitched. The air in the room felt colder, pressing against his skin like unseen hands. He took a cautious step forward, his phone's flashlight trembling in his grip. He pointed the light into the wardrobe. Nothing. Just an empty space. But then, from deep inside the shadows, a whisper. Come closer. Ethan's chest tightened. Every instinct told him to get out. He reached forward, hesitating for only a second before slamming the wardrobe door shut. But just as his fingers touched the wood, handprints appeared. Dozens of them. Pressed against the inside of the door. Some small, like a child's. Others large, elongated, with fingers too long and thin to be human. They weren't there before. They had appeared right in front of him. Ethan's blood ran cold. He yanked his hand away, stepping back so fast he nearly tripped over himself. And then, the handprints started to fade. Slowly. As if whatever had left them was pulling away. Watching. Waiting. Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. His gaze was locked on the wardrobe, his entire body rigid with fear. Then, the light above him flickered. Once. Twice. And then darkness. His phone's flashlight was the only source of light now, casting a small, shaking beam across the room. The air grew thick, suffocating. A deep pressure settled over his chest, like unseen eyes were pressing down on him from every corner. Then, from somewhere behind him, a slow, ragged breath. He wasn't alone. The breath was warm. Too warm. It wasn't his own. Ethan's skin prickled as the realization hit him like a freight train. He wanted to turn around, but every muscle in his body screamed don't. His phone's flashlight shook in his grip. His breath hitched. Then, a whisper. Right against his ear. Run. Ethan didn't think. Didn't hesitate. He bolted. He yanked open the door and sprinted down the hallway, ignoring the open doors, ignoring the shifting shadows in the corner of his vision. He needed to get out. But just as he reached the top of the staircase, something grabbed his ankle and yanked him down. Ethan felt his ankle wrenched backward, his balance gone in an instant. He didn't have time to react. His body crashed down the staircase, each impact sending pain exploding through him. His arms flailed, trying to grasp onto anything but the railing was out of reach. Then darkness. For a moment, everything was still. Silent. Ethan groaned, his head spinning. He forced his eyes open, expecting to see the familiar hallway at the base of the stairs. But what he saw made his blood freeze. He wasn't in the house anymore. The wooden staircase had vanished. The soft glow of the streetlights outside gone. Instead, he lay on a cold, damp floor, surrounded by stone walls covered in strange, twisting symbols. The air smelled of mold and decay. And worst of all, somewhere in the distance, something was breathing. Ethan scrambled to his feet, his breath shaky. His body ached from the fall, but adrenaline shoved the pain aside. He wasn't alone. In the farthest corner of the stone room, the shadows shifted. A figure tall, impossibly thin stepped forward. Its limbs were wrong. Its body seemed to flicker between shapes, as if reality itself couldn't decide what it was. And then, it spoke. A series of hushed, guttural whispers slithered through the air, the words curling around Ethan like unseen fingers. The language was ancient. Foreign. But somehow, deep in the pit of his mind, Ethan understood. You shouldn't be here. Ethan stumbled backward, his chest tight with fear. He needed to get out. Now. But as soon as he turned toward the way he came, the room was gone. In its place stretched a long, dark hallway. The stone walls twisted and pulsed, shifting like breathing flesh. Ethan spun around, but the figure had disappeared. Instead, there was only the hallway. Endless. Silent. Wrong. He took a cautious step forward, his heartbeat hammering against his ribs. Then another. And another. The air grew colder with every step. Shadows slithered along the walls, just out of reach. Then, from somewhere deep inside the corridor, a voice. His own voice. Calling out to him. Ethan. The sound made his stomach churn. It was his voice. Exactly his voice. Calling from somewhere ahead. Begging. Please. I'm stuck. Help me. Ethan's fingers clenched into fists. His breath came in shallow gasps. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. I'm hurt. Please, Ethan. The voice warped, twisting at the edges, as if something else was trying to shape it. Trying to make it sound more human. But it wasn't. Ethan took a step back. The hallway breathed. The walls pulsed. Then, a single whisper, low and chilling. Come closer. Ethan ran. He didn't care where the hallway led. Didn't care if the shadows behind him were stretching, chasing, reaching. He just ran. The whispers grew louder. The walls closed in, their surface twisting into shapes, faces, eyes, hands pressing against the stone as if something was trapped inside. Then, the floor vanished. Ethan fell. Fell through darkness. The air screamed past him, rushing in his ears, until he crashed onto a wooden floor. His bedroom floor. Gasping, heart pounding, he scrambled to his feet. He was back. The wardrobe was closed. The lights were on. But something had changed. The walls were the same. The furniture was the same. But the air. It wasn't his house anymore. And whatever had been in that hallway had followed him back. Ethan's lungs burned as he tried to catch his breath. His fingers dug into the wooden floor, his heart still hammering in his chest. He looked around. His room. The wardrobe was closed. The bed was unmade. His phone was lying on the desk, screen cracked from when he dropped it earlier. Everything seemed normal. But the air was different. Thicker. Heavier. The familiar scent of old wood and dust had been replaced by something rotting. Slowly, Ethan pushed himself up, his hands shaking. Then, he noticed something that made his stomach drop. The wardrobe. It was on the wrong side of the room. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't moved anything. He was sure of it. Then, something else caught his attention. The mirror. It stood against the opposite wall, a tall, antique thing he had picked up from a flea market years ago. The glass was dusty, the edges worn. But that wasn't what made him freeze. It was the reflection. Ethan was standing in front of it, but the reflection didn't move. His heart stopped. He lifted his arm. His reflection did nothing. He took a step back. His reflection stayed still. Then it smiled. Ethan stumbled backward, his entire body screaming at him to run. But he couldn't look away. The reflection stood there, perfectly still. Its mouth curved into a too-wide grin. And then, it spoke. But the lips didn't move. The voice came from behind him. You shouldn't have come back. Ethan spun around, nothing. He turned back to the mirror. His reflection was still grinning. And then it took a step forward. Ethan froze. The reflection stepped forward again. And again. Until its face was pressed against the glass. The grin widened, stretching its lips in an unnatural way. Then. Knock. 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 The sound sent ice through Ethan's veins. The reflection was knocking from the inside of the mirror. Knock. 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 The glass trembled. Cracks started forming, spreading like veins across the surface. Ethan took a step back, his breath quick and shallow. And then, the reflection raised its hand. Not to knock. To reach through. Ethan reacted on instinct. He lunged backward, just as the reflection's hand burst through the glass. The sound was deafening, like 1,000 mirrors shattering at once. Shards exploded in every direction, but Ethan barely noticed. Because the hand, his own hand, but not, was grabbing for him. Long fingers, twisted and pale, reached out, grasping for his arm. Ethan tried to scream, but no sound came out. The hand was inches away, it was going to pull him in. But then, something else moved. A shadow swept across the room. The hand jerked back. The mirror's surface sealed shut instantly, as if nothing had happened. The reflection was gone. And in its place, a message, written in the dust on the glass. 4 words. Don't look behind you. Ethan's breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. His eyes remained glued to the mirror, to the message smeared in the dust. Don't look behind you. His mind screamed at him to obey. But his body, his instincts were betraying him. He could feel it. Something was there. Standing behind him. Watching. The air was heavy, thick with an unnatural stillness. The only sound was the pounding of his own heartbeat, deafening in the silence. He gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles white. His entire body was locked in place, torn between the need to run and the terrible, irresistible urge to see. What would happen if he turned around? Would he see nothing only to realize too late that it was already too close? Or would he see something that would drive him mad? The silence stretched on, suffocating. Then, something touched him. A hand. Cold. Wrong. Fingers too long, too thin, pressing against his shoulder through the fabric of his shirt. Ethan's body went rigid. His lungs refused to work. The pressure increased. Not painful, but insistent. Like something was testing him. Feeling him. His entire existence narrowed to that single point of contact where the thing behind him was touching him. Then, without warning, the fingers tightened. Ethan wanted to scream. Wanted to run, to thrash, to get away. But his body refused to obey. And then, the whisper. Right against his ear. Soft. Raspy. Distorted. "You're not supposed to be here." The breath that carried the words was warm, but it left his skin cold. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, every nerve in his body screaming in protest. This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real. Then, the whisper changed. The voice became his own. "Turn around, Ethan." The pressure on his shoulder vanished. Just like that. Ethan stumbled forward, gasping for breath, his limbs finally his own again. He grabbed the edge of the desk, steadying himself. His entire body trembled. It was gone. But he could still feel it. Watching. Slowly, so painfully slowly, his eyes lifted toward the mirror. And that's when he saw it. Standing directly behind him. Tall. Too tall. Its face was a blur, shifting, twisting, trying to become something familiar. But its grin that remained. Ethan reacted too late. The figure in the mirror moved. Not like a person. Not like something living. It lurched, its body bending in ways that should have been impossible. And then, it lunged. Straight at him. The glass exploded. Shards flew through the air, slicing through his skin, embedding themselves into the walls. Ethan threw himself backward, barely avoiding the impact. But something else came through with the glass. Something that didn't belong. And as Ethan hit the ground, a voice deep, ancient spoke from the darkness. "Now you see." Ethan's body hit the wooden floor with a painful thud. His head spun, his chest rising and falling in frantic gasps. The mirror was gone. All that remained were its shattered pieces. Suspended in the air. The shards didn't fall. They floated, frozen in place, like time itself had fractured along with the glass. Each shard reflected something different, not the room, not Ethan. But eyes. Hundreds of them. Watching. Blinking. And then, they moved. At first, it was a murmur. Soft. Indistinct. Then, the voices grew louder. Hundreds, no, thousands of whispers, overlapping, clashing, forming a chaotic symphony of fragmented words. "He sees us. Not supposed to be here. His name is Ethan. He belongs to the house now." Ethan clamped his hands over his ears, but it didn't help. The whispers weren't coming from the air. They were inside his head. Then, the shards began to move. The pieces of broken glass twisted, swirling faster and faster, like a hurricane of jagged edges. The reflections inside them shifted, no longer just eyes, but faces. Some screaming. Some grinning. Some watching. Ethan scrambled backward, panic clawing at his throat. The vortex grew, stretching toward him, pulling the air with it, dragging him forward. No. His nails dug into the wooden floor, his muscles burning as he fought to resist. But the house had him now. And it wasn't letting go. The wind roared in his ears. The force of it lifted him off the ground. Ethan's scream was swallowed by the storm of glass as he was dragged forward. The vortex devoured him. For a split second, his body was weightless. Then, he fell, plunging into a black abyss. The house disappeared. The world disappeared. He was falling forever. And from the darkness, a voice laughed. The fall ended abruptly. Ethan hit solid ground, hard. Pain shot through his limbs, but he barely had time to react. Because the place where he had landed was not his house. It was somewhere else. The walls were made of stone, damp and covered in ancient carvings. The air was thick with the scent of rot and something else, something unnatural. Then, he heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming toward him. From the darkness beyond, something watched him. And it was smiling. Ethan's breath came in short, ragged gasps. His body ached from the fall, but he didn't dare move. Because just beyond the dim light of this twisted, ancient chamber, something was there. Watching. The footsteps had stopped. But the presence remained. He could feel it. The air was wrong, too thick, too heavy, as if the space itself was waiting for something. And then, ever so slowly, a shape emerged from the darkness. Ethan's stomach turned ice cold. The figure wasn't walking toward him, it was gliding. Its limbs barely moved, yet it came closer with an unnatural, fluid motion. Then, its face shifted. 1 second, it had no features. Smooth, empty skin where its face should be. Then, it changed. A woman's face. Then an old man. Then a child, crying. The expressions flickered, blending into one another like a glitching screen. Ethan's body locked in place, his brain screaming at him to run. But the thing spoke first. Ethan. His entire body froze. The voice, it was her. His mother. Soft. Gentle. Familiar. But it was wrong. Too slow. Too stretched. As if something was trying to remember how human speech worked. You shouldn't be here, sweetheart. The figure tilted its head, its shifting features settling for a moment into his mother's face. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. It wasn't real. But before he could react, the thing lunged at him. Ethan bolted. His legs finally obeyed, propelling him away from the thing wearing his mother's voice. But the room. It shifted. The walls stretched, distorted, morphing into endless corridors that spiraled into darkness. He ran left only to find himself back at the starting point. He ran right the same. It was a loop. A trap. And then, the whispers returned. You can't leave. He doesn't belong. The house has him now. The whispers turned into a roar. The stone walls moved. Slowly at first. Then faster. Closing in. Ethan's breath hitched. The space around him shrank, tightening, forcing him toward one exit. A door. Old. Wooden. Barely hanging on its hinges. It wasn't there before. But now, it was his only choice. Behind him, the shifting figure let out a sound, not a scream, not a laugh, but something in between. Then, it charged. Ethan threw himself at the door. And as his fingers touched the handle, everything went black. Ethan's body hit something soft. His bed. His own bed. He jolted upright, his breath ragged. The room was dimly lit, the curtains swaying slightly from the cool night breeze. His desk, his bookshelf, his mirror, everything was in place. Had it all been a dream? His hands trembled as he touched his arms, his face. He was real. But something felt wrong. The air was heavy. Stagnant. Like the house was holding its breath. Then, he noticed something that shouldn't be there. A chill ran down his spine. His closet door was open. Just a crack. Ethan swallowed hard. He never left it open. Slowly, he shifted his legs over the side of the bed, his bare feet touching the cold wooden floor. His pulse thundered in his ears. The room was eerily silent. Too silent. Then, the crack in the closet door widened. Not by much. Just enough to notice. Like something inside had nudged it. Ethan's entire body went rigid. The sound was faint. Soft. A slow, deliberate inhale. Then, a long, shuddering exhale. Coming from inside the closet. His throat tightened. He wanted to move, to run, to do anything but sit there like prey. But he couldn't. The breathing continued. Steady. Patient. Waiting. Then, a whisper. "I never left." The whisper sent ice through Ethan's veins. And then, the closet door slammed open. The impact shook the walls, sending books tumbling from the shelves. But inside, there was nothing. No clothes. No shelves. Just blackness. An endless, yawning void. And then, a hand shot out from the darkness. Ethan's scream barely escaped his throat before the hand grabbed him. Cold. Bony. Wrong. It wrapped around his wrist with inhuman strength, yanking him forward. He dug his heels into the floor, his nails scratching against the wood, but it was useless. The darkness swallowed him whole. The last thing he saw was his bedroom door. His escape. Before the closet door slammed shut, and the room fell into silence once more, Ethan hit the ground hard. But it wasn't the wooden floor of his bedroom. It was stone. Cold, damp, and endless. He pushed himself up, his breath shaky. The air smelled of mildew and decay, thick and heavy as if it had been trapped here for centuries. A single flickering lantern hung from the ceiling, casting weak, shivering light over the narrow hallway stretching before him. Ethan swallowed hard. There was no door behind him. No way back. Just darkness ahead. And something watching from it. Ethan's breathing grew shallow. The darkness at the end of the hallway wasn't just emptiness. It shifted. Moved. Like a living thing, coiling and pulsing against the walls. The lantern above flickered violently, casting shadows that didn't match his own movements. Some were too tall. Others had too many limbs. Then, a whisper, from deep within the hallway. "Keep walking." Ethan took a step forward. Then another. His own footsteps echoed against the stone walls, sharp and clear. But then, a second set of footsteps followed. Not his. The pace didn't match his own. Someone or something was walking behind him. But when he spun around, there was nothing. Just the flickering lantern. Then the footsteps grew closer. Ethan bolted forward. His heartbeat pounded in his ears as he sprinted down the endless hallway. Then, a door appeared. Old, wooden, and identical to the closet door in his room. For a moment, relief flooded his chest. Then, knock. 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 A slow, deliberate knocking from the other side. And a voice. Low. Raspy. Inhuman. "Come in, Ethan." Ethan took a step back, his breath caught in his throat. The door creaked. Just a sliver. Then, it opened wider. The light from the lantern barely illuminated what lay beyond. But Ethan could see a figure. Standing. Waiting. Too tall. Too thin. Its face hidden in the shadows. And then, it stepped forward. Ethan's stomach lurched. As the figure stepped into the weak, flickering light, its face became visible. Or rather, the lack of one. It had no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just a smooth, pale surface that twitched and pulsed like it was trying to grow features, but kept failing. Then, its face ripped open. A jagged, gaping grin stretched across its blank skin, splitting it down the middle. And from that impossible mouth, it laughed. Panic slammed into Ethan's chest. He spun around, bolting the way he came. But the hallway warped. The walls curled inward, stretching like melting wax. The floor twisted beneath his feet, making every step feel like he was running through thick, sinking mud. The laughter behind him grew louder. Then, "You've been here before, Ethan." His breath hitched. What did it mean? Ethan forced himself forward, fighting the shifting space. But then, the voice spoke again. "You don't remember, do you?" Ethan didn't stop running, but something about those words sent a chill deeper than fear itself. "How many times have you tried to leave?" That made him stop. He didn't want to turn around. But something inside him knew. This wasn't the first time. A new door appeared ahead. This one was different. Not wooden and old like the closet door, but modern. White. Just like the door to his own bedroom. And it was already open. Beyond it, his room. His real room. It was right there. He lunged for it. But the laughter turned into a scream. Ethan's body jerked forward. His hands gripped the bed sheets. His breathing was ragged, panicked. The closet door was shut. His room was normal. Silent. His chest rose and fell as he tried to process it. A dream? A hallucination? Something else? Then, his eyes drifted to the floor. And his stomach dropped. Because there, just inches from his bed, were muddy footprints, leading from the closet. Thank you for listening to this story. But remember, never assume this is just a story. Who knows, something might be listening along with you right now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. But be careful, maybe after this, something else has subscribed behind you. See you in the next tale, and may your night remain peaceful, if it can.